Cryptocurrency Bitcoin is not having a good week, and joining me to find out why is Brooke Masters, our company's editor. Brooke, Bitcoin has dropped to a 3-week low after there were some people in the financial industry who criticized it. Who said what?
Well, first of all, the UK regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, issued a warning basically saying, retail investors, this stuff is really risky, don't do it. That comes after China banned Bitcoin last week. And in the U.S. yesterday, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan, went on an absolute rant about how dreadful Bitcoin was. He compared it to the tulip craze in Holland of the 18th century, which is the quintessential bubble. He basically said he'd fire any banker who was trading it. I mean, it was absolute hatred for this stuff.
And this is someone very senior, obviously, in the financial industry, basically saying, don't touch it.
Absolutely. I mean, he really believes it's a terrible thing at this point. And it's interesting, he's sort of changed his tune, because a while back he was asked about it and he said he was really dubious about it, but maybe time would tell. And now he's on the, this is dreadful.
He appears to be certain. Okay. And Bitcoin, although it's, as we say, at a 3-week low, it's risen hugely in the last few years. Do you think this is just a temporary blip and that it's still likely to rise again?
It's very hard to tell. I mean, an awful lot of people who are experts in crazes say this is displaying every sign of a craze. But the thing about crazes is people can decide they're nutty, and yet they'll go on for a couple more years before they then ultimately collapse. I mean, in the end, Bitcoin has no underlying value. It's just a thing in a computer. There's no government. There's nobody promising that it's worth anything. So it's only worth something if people believe it's worth something. And it is hard to believe at this point that the way it's grown in value can continue. But the question is whether it stops growing in value tomorrow or it stops growing in value 5 years from now. Who knows?
Now, you mentioned earlier the tulip craze, the bubble and 1600s. What is the main argument, do you think, from its critics that Bitcoin is its bubble? What are those signs that you talked about that are being displayed where people think, well, this is such an obvious bubble?
Well, it's the rapid growth and it's the lack of any particular underlying value. It goes up because it goes up. As I said, there's nothing attached to it. It's not a scarcity thing. You don't walk away with anything. There's also this question, one of the reasons people like, or said to like Bitcoin is, of course, because it's not attached to a country or anything. It's a good way to move illegal funds around. And there's certainly a sense that people have used it, in the past at least, to pay for things like illegal drugs or weapons or probably terrorism financing. And as countries crack down on it more, there's certainly a real risk that its value will disappear, because if it's only used by illegal people and governments crack down on it, presumably it will cease to have any value at all.
Okay, well, we'll continue watching. Thanks, Brooke.